A big thanks to Cheddo Chef for sponsoring this episode. I've got a technique that's going to make your meat better. I've got this piece of meat. This is an inside skirt steak, and in itself this meat is very flavorful, very tasty, a little tougher than a tender steak like a ribeye, but overall a very delicious steak, and especially really good on a barbecue. But I cooked it many times and now it's kind of getting boring to me. And I'm looking for a way to make this more interesting and more, well, make this meat cool again. I'll be cooking that beautiful steak on this grill, the Cheddo Chef Boma. Now this is a wood fire grill, which means I'm going to start a fire and I'm going to heat up the grill, and that takes some time, so I'm going to do that before I'm going to do anything else. So when I want to start cooking, this thing is going to be nice and hot and it's going to give me that beautiful caramel crust on the outside of my steak. I'm going to start by chopping up some kindle, and my kindle comes from the birch tree. It burns up really fast and really easy. I'm going to light it up with a couple of fire starters, and on top of that I'm going to place some larger logs of birch tree. Once it all catches fire, I'm going to put on 2 logs of beech, which is the hardwood that I'm going to use eventually to warm up the whole grill. Now I got a beautiful fire going, and this is going to take some time, so you and me, we're going to take a look at that steak and make it absolutely perfect. And I'll show you what I'm talking about, turning that steak into an even better steak. Now, how can I make this better? And the key criteria to making this better is by adding something to it. And in this case, the meat tastes great. Of course, I want to enhance the flavors of the meat, but before I'm going to enhance the flavors of the meat, I also want to present it in a beautiful way. And that's why I'm going to cut this up into strips. I'm going to take 2 fingers from the top and then start by making an incision and another incision, and those are going to be my guidelines. I'm going to cut all the way through, straight down the steak, and again, and now I have 3 separate pieces all connected at the top like an octopus. And I recently learned that it's not octopussy, it is octopuses. All right, now here's the plan. I could just braid this like this and it's going to look better. But this is also an opportunity to not just braid it like this, but I can also add more character to this steak, like a real signature. Because this looks great, but I'm gonna do better. And for seasoning, I'm going to make the PitmasterX Texas beef rub, of which you can find the recipe in a link down below. Now the reason that I'm seasoning this steak up front instead of afterwards, which I prefer, is that the seasoning is also going to go in between these strips of steak. And after this is prepared, I can't get to that, so I need to do it up front. It doesn't need much because this steak is very thin, and that's always what you gotta keep in mind. Is your steak real thick, 2 fingers thick? You can add a little more. If it's 3 fingers thick, then you can add even more. And if you're going thicker like a roast, it will be nice to have an adhesive like mustard, so you can put loads of seasoning on your steak or on your roast. And here's where things are going to get exciting. I'm going to take this, a thin strip of bacon, and wrap my steak into it. That is something that is going to make all the difference. I already have some flavor from the seasoning. Now I'm going to get flavor from the bacon. And when we put it on the Cheddo Chef, it's going to crispen up even more beautiful, because that bacon fat will render down on that hot plate and it's going to taste freaking amazing and make this steak even better. Now I'm going to perform the last step of the preparation for the steak, which is braiding the steak. Look at it. How beautiful is this? Absolutely freaking gorgeous. At the end of the braid, I'm going to secure it to make sure it doesn't fall apart, because that's what good dads do. My Cheddo Chef Boma is now hot. You can see it from the circle that's been burning. Well, it's been burning off like a little bit of oil that's left over from the last cook. And that means I need to re-season it with a little bit of plant-based oil with a high smoke point. And you can see this is super hot. So I'm just gonna take this, take a clean rag and just rub it in, make it non-stick. I like to do this a couple of times to make sure that we have a nice non-stick layer. It's basically the same thing as making your cast iron non-stick. Just works really well on this beautiful grill. Now that I got the seasons, we're ready to start cooking. I'm going to take a pan, warm it up over the fire, not completely though, just a little bit so it warms up. In this pan, I'm going to put some garlic and some parsley that I put together in a blender, blitzed it up, added a little bit of olive oil, and now I have a mixture of very potent spice mixes. Now notice that I didn't put in any salt or any pepper because I already have that flavor on my steak, but I want to add this as well. I'm just gonna pre-cook this in my pan, let it become warm, and if the garlic and parsley are gonna fry a little bit, that's absolutely perfect, but I don't wanna overdo it. So I'm not looking for the garlic to be fully cooked, I just want it to be touched by a little bit of heat. And here we have the star of our show, the braided steak. It goes onto the grill plate at medium heat. Close to the fire I have hot temperatures. All the way to the side I have lower temperatures. I'm gonna place it in the center and I wanna check to see if I'm building up a crust. I see my bacon browning up. I'm gonna flip it around. I'm gonna take it nice and slow because time is my friend here. That steak is still cold. It needs time to warm up to get it fully cooked in the center. And if need be, I can always go faster by moving it towards the fire. Or let's say you want to buy this barbecue. Then you want to understand how these things work. How fast does my steak cook? Do I need to be on the hot side? Do I need to be on the cold side? You don't want to mess around with an expensive steak, so start with a cheaper steak like this, and you might want to invest in an infrared thermometer so you can measure the temperature on the surface. So you can see right now I got a temperature of 116 degrees on the cold side and a temperature of 329 degrees on the hot side. Now 329 degrees is way too hot to put your steak on and let it slowly get up to temperature. It will mean your steak is going to be black on the outside and undercooked on the inside. You know that at a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius, you're going nice and slow, warming up the whole thing, taking your time, and that's a more comfortable spot to be in. And when that steak is starting to turn warm, it's time to add that garlic and parsley. I'm just gonna brush this on, and it's gotta cook with the steak. That oil is gonna help fry the steak, and the garlic and parsley are going to add flavor. Of course, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. This is the moment where I start smiling. This looks so tasty to me. My steak is almost done. I'm going to move it to another part of the grill. That is the safe spot. I'm putting it at low temperatures on the upper side of the barbecue. And now I can continue to cook right here where I got all my flavor built up. Remember, I put that garlic and parsley on every time. I got a little bit of that steak, and this right here, this is the best stuff. Time to take a baguette and get all that flavor in the baguette. First, I'm gonna cut it in half and let's soak it up. Brush it on, making this a real true garlic bread. And wait until you see what I'm gonna do with it next. Both sides, flip it around. The garlic bread is done. Now I wanna size up my steak to the bread. Cut this off. Of course, I'm gonna add some greens. Make sure your mama's happy. Just gonna load that up. Steak goes on. And by this time, I can take off this pin and it will stay in its position. Let's clean this up. Too much green hurts the eye, I know. We're not all born vegans. And of course, this sandwich needs a sauce. And this is the best garlic sauce in the world. Chop fine parsley until you have 5 tablespoons full. Add to that a tablespoon of fine chopped chives. Grate 2 cloves of garlic, the zest of a lemon, and add the juice of half the lemon. A teaspoon of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, 200 milliliters of mayonnaise, 200 milliliters of sour cream. Mix it up and set it in the fridge for 24 hours, and that's how you make world's best garlic sauce. The finishing touch, my garlic bread goes on, and look at that. What a beauty of a sandwich. Let's open this up, take a look inside. Whoa. That's what I'm looking for. A tasty sandwich, delicious steak, bacon, garlic sauce, and of course for my mom, a little bit of veggies. If you'll excuse me, I'm gonna take a bite out of this. That is how you take a steak sandwich to the next level. The steak looks beautiful, so you can do it without the sandwich. I love it as it is. You do you, I do me, everybody happy. Let's make steak better. Wow.